What does a Pinterest VA actually do on a day-to-day basis? That is one of the most common questions inside of DMs, and let's talk about it. Now, the day-to-day of a Pinterest virtual assistant or a Pinterest manager, you're going to hear me interchange those terms so much. They're the exact same thing. Just so I'm not confusing you, if I say Pinterest manager or Pinterest virtual assistant, they're exactly the same. So, the day to day for a Pinterest manager is going to actually look really different. One of the reasons why I love doing this job is that every single day is not the same. I would personally get so bored. But every day does have like the same concepts or the same core concepts, I should say. So, as a Pinterest manager, you're really responsible for two things on a daily basis, in my opinion. One, making sure that your clients are being taken care of. So that means whatever services you're offering. And listen, I could go in so much detail around different services, but that's why I created the free training, because the free training I actually walk you through different services you can offer as a Pinterest manager in way more detail than I can in these quick little videos. But you are responsible for your clients, meaning whatever services you're offering, making sure that their account is looking good, making sure that if they have any questions, those are getting answered. Typically, that happens over email or Slack. And if you are doing something like, let's say, organic Pinterest management, for example, then some days you're going to be creating that content for the clients and scheduling it out. Now, the thing that I personally love about Pinterest is that you are not like creating content today that's going out today. Everything is really looked at in advance. And so you can, and we do this with a lot of our clients, you can be in a situation where the first week of every month, depending on how many clients you have, you're like using one day of the week for each of your clients. It's a tricky thing in my brain to try and say. One day of the week for each of your clients to schedule out their content for the rest of the month. Love that. I'm like a type of person where if I know, okay, I have 5 clients and they're each getting like one pin a day, I would rather say I'm going to have one week where I'm working way more than the rest of the month, to kind of give myself honestly like a break and to get ahead. So what you're doing on a daily basis as a Pinterest manager is you're taking care of your clients. Like I said, that could look like creating content. That could look like pulling analytic reports, answering any questions that they have. It really will vary on what services you're offering and really the client themselves. And then the other part is finding new clients. So that will come from you pitching, whether that is creating social content, sending out cold emails, going on freelance sites, whatever method you've chosen. And spoiler alert, we teach you all of these methods inside of the Pinterest VA school. But whatever method you've chosen, my suggestion is always that you're doing some sort of activity each day to be generating those leads. Even if you're sitting in a spot where you're fully booked out, the more leads you can have coming in and people interested in your business, it's like such a comfortable spot to be in, instead of one client saying like, hey, we don't really want to like use your services anymore, and all of a sudden you're scrambling, right? Let's have some clients on the back burner who are like ready and want to work with you. So those are like the two main things that you are responsible for as a Pinterest manager. And this is why I love it, because when I was a social media manager, I never just had two things that I was responsible for. And it's very difficult to like get ahead. So when you're a social media manager, a lot of the time, like when you're focused, like let's say specifically on Instagram or TikTok, like there's content that needs to be created that week, or there's content that needs to be created that day to go out that day, because depending on what's happening in the world, like sometimes your content does need to really shift and pivot. I mean, the stories I could tell you about being a social media manager during 2020, I don't think I slept for all of 2020, and that is not dramatic, because every single day something new was happening, and every single day we had to pivot how we were approaching marketing. Specifically, all of our clients were on Instagram, and so I mean, I'm even thinking about like we had clients who were local businesses. So we had like restaurants and med spas, and we were literally on a daily basis getting updates from the owners on what they could and couldn't do because of COVID. And so 2020 was really the year that I was like, yeah, no, we're not going to offer Instagram management anymore. This is way too much for my nervous system to be able to handle. But we continued offering Pinterest because Pinterest is not a platform that's affected by that, and that's something that I personally really love because, like I said, it allows you the opportunity to get ahead. It allows you the opportunity to really have breathing room. And a lot of the stuff that or a lot of work that we're doing in the online spaces don't always offer that, right? A lot of the time it's like clients need you and they need you now. And what we found with Pinterest is that Pinterest is a slower platform in terms of like the amount of time it takes to see results, and just like it it is kind of that platform where everything builds upon itself. And so at the beginning, it can feel slow, but then everything compounds. And so typically, the clients who want to be on Pinterest understand that. And it just allows you to be able to not feel like you're on all the time. You really can schedule stuff out. You really can take that vacation, take that maternity leave, take that Friday off, and it's not the end of the world by any means. Where if you are managing Instagram and you're managing Instagram stories for clients, like stuff is always having to go out. And I can tell you those third party platforms are not always reliable. I learned that so many times. So at the end of the day, what does a typical day look like as a Pinterest manager? Well, I can only tell you from my experience, and my experience is checking in on clients. Really, I like to personally use like the first half of my day to knock out any client work. So that means like by 12:30, I want to be done with client work. I want to have everything ironed, everything done, and then the rest of my day I'm going to use to really get ahead in business stuff. That sounded so sophisticated. Business stuff. What I mean by that is creating content for the business, doing sales outreach, just using that second half kind of on my leisure, but knowing like, okay, I need to do X amount of outreaches in order to make sure that things are still rocking and rolling forward. And then that's it. Like I said, every day is different. There will be clients who have questions one day and then you don't hear from them for a week. And that's just kind of like the nature of the business. But what I love about it is that you can control and structure it however you see fit. When I was a team of one, my days looked so different than my days do now that we are a team of four. And I will say, like, when I was a team of one, I had to be super, super, super intentional with my time because I also didn't want to be working around the clock 24/7. And so I think that's the great thing is that you can do this from anywhere and you can really do this when works best for you. I think my business partner, she was doing this part-time for a year and a half before it was almost 2 years before she went full-time. And so her time looked like her lunch break, and after her kids went to bed. And that was not my time. Like I was doing this full time. And so I really was the one who was communicating with clients during the day and then kind of like sending her updates and being like, hey, can you take care of this when you have a chance? And so I think it's nice to be able to see like two extremes of being able to side hustle it for a long time. And then the other flip side of being all in, and what does that really look like? I can tell you since we decided to just focus on Pinterest, I have not worked 40 hours a week. When I was doing social media management, I was working like 60 hours a week. But Pinterest management, there's just so much planning. And for someone like myself, being able to plan and get ahead is such a game changer. So if you're curious what it looks like to be able to be a Pinterest manager and how much money you can actually make with the amount of time that you have, because I think that's something we need to talk about more, is you may not have 10 hours a week to be able to be a Pinterest manager. You may have 6. How much money can you realistically make in that time frame? I'm actually going to walk you through all of that inside of my free masterclass. I've gone ahead and linked it for you in the description below. I'm going to walk you through how to take your time, figure out how much money you want to make and what that looks like in terms of how many clients you need to work with, but then also how much you need to charge. I'm telling you, this is a brand new masterclass that I revamped this year. And it is so, so, so good. Like I said, I've gone ahead and I've linked it for you below, and I cannot wait to see you inside.